Okay, for the Module 4 assignment, I chose to talk about cell phones and pagers, which I kind of interpreted to be cell phones and tablets, since pagers are a little bit older technology. First of all, cell phone usage has excuse me, increased over the past several years. The technology is getting cheaper and easier for everyone to get a hold of, so more and more students and people in general have cell phones. It's used for communication both on campus and off campus. Kids use it to talk to their friends or their parents, or teachers do the same. They talk to their families and their friends as well using cell phone technology. The big question here is, should your school allow cell phones and tablets in the classroom? That's kind of what I geared this for, and I know this class is geared for school administrators, so I tried to make it that way. Geared towards being an administrator or looking at the cell phone usage from an administrator's viewpoint. So some of the pros of having cell phones in class is that you could use them kind of like you do clickers. I know in my classroom I have a set of classroom clickers, and I can put together questions and the kids can answer true or false, or multiple choice, or enter a number. For math, I do a lot of times enter your answer. So they could, I know there's apps out there that cell phones could be used in that similar fashion, so you could get instant feedback from your class and get some individualized instruction to see who's struggling and who's doing okay. Also, they can be beneficial for in-class assignments, such as taking pictures of projects, like science projects or whatnot. They could be used in presentation. There's a bunch of different apps, especially in the Apple products, that could be used to enhance learning or allow students to present information to their peers. Getting my master's here in instructional technology, I learned about a bunch of different websites and applications that could be used to enhance learning. Maybe not be the sole way that students learn, but definitely enhance their classroom experience. Also, cell phones could be used to allow students to make arrangements for after-school activities. So instead of students going to the office if they need a ride, they could maybe just text their parents and say, hey, I decided to stay late, or I'm not going to go, or this has been canceled, or whatnot. So students could responsibly use it during the school day at appropriate times, which would reduce the amount of students in the office. Also for safety, like a lot of cell phones have GPS. If a student goes missing and they have GPS on their phone, maybe they could track it, just like in any other missing child case or whatnot, but they could track it at school as well. So, and then I included this little comic just to show how cell phones could be used to answer questions in class. Some of the cons are that it could be distracting to the learning environment. Even if the phones are on silent or on vibrate, they can still be a distraction. Most phones light up if you get a text or a call, and even if it's on vibrate, you're not supposed to hear it, but everyone knows you still hear the vibration. So that could be a distraction to some students learning. Also, academic dishonesty. Students could use a cell phone to take pictures of exams and pass it on to their friends, or look at stuff up on the internet when they're not supposed to be on a test or an assignment, or take pictures, use a calculator when they're not supposed to, or a certain type of calculator, or a certain app or whatnot. So there are ways that it's not so beneficial in the classroom as well. Some more cons are that some students may be inappropriately communicating with others. This could be other adults or other students. A lot of drama, as we call in middle school, could be started through cell phones. So sometimes maybe it's not such a good idea. Parents can't monitor it as much when they're at school. So it's kind of a free-for-all for students when they are at school who they can text, unless they have some parental controls already installed. Also, one thing I think about, especially at my school, is lost or stolen technology. A lot of times our policy at school is that they keep their cell phones in their lockers, but people don't, because they always say, well, so-and-so can get into my locker and then they'll steal this or whatnot. So safety and the possibility of phones getting lost or stolen is always an issue, especially for administration. Some things to consider in a cell phone policy. many courts have, in some states, have supported the decision to ban cell phones, mainly because of the disruption of the learning environment. And one thing they really need to consider is that it doesn't violate the students' First Amendment freedoms. So as long as you're considering those two things, I think most state governments have supported banning cell phones in schools. Also, as an administrator, you need to consider the safety and orderly environment for teaching and learning. So if you have a cell phone in there, it could be a distraction. That's not really an orderly environment. Safe, which I already talked about, cell phones being stolen, or, things can be started, pictures could be taken of somebody and posted online, and so said this, and so said that. So that's really not a very positive learning environment that, as an administrator, you would want to be supporting. One other thing that the text talked about considering is maybe cell phones for medical emergencies. Like if a student has a specific medical condition, maybe they would be allowed if there was particular paperwork that the parents filled out and the student understood the circumstances, that maybe that student could have it for medical emergencies. So there could be some benefits there. Some of the guidelines that the book suggested is that phones necessarily shouldn't be banned unless there's sufficient evidence of disruption or improper use. So the main one that comes to mind is disrupting the learning environment, because if a student is texting their friends on their cell phone while I'm trying to teach them something, then they're obviously not going to be paying attention to what I'm teaching them. Therefore, they're not learning the standards, and it just kind of trickles down from there. So, but if they're used appropriately and the students are still learning what they should be learning and it's not disrupting, then maybe they shouldn't be banned. The second guideline they suggested is that there needs to be some rules for usage. So maybe they're only used during passing period, or they're only used, at lunch or whatnot. So as long as there's some guidelines or some rules set, that's probably beneficial for the school. And the third one that they suggested, which I just talked about, is there should be maybe some exceptions, like for those medical conditions. And lastly, the guidelines should be made from a focus of fairness, meaning that the guidelines shouldn't be made just to punish everybody because the administrator doesn't want cell phones, but they should be considering all the options here. Is this fair for the students? Is it fair for the teachers? Is it fair for administration? So all of the guidelines that are made and all the rules that are made regarding cell phones should be considered from a source of fairness. So implications on my school in particular, I do teach at a Title I middle school, so there's not a lot of money in these kids' homes, but some of them do have cell phones. As far as appropriateness, I don't believe most classrooms use cell phones in their daily instruction, so it's not really maybe appropriate for a middle school level, basically because not everybody has a cell phone. And, if I say, okay, everyone get their cell phone out and download this app, only maybe 1/4 of the students would have the cell phone and be able to download the application that I wanted to use that day in class. So it's maybe not necessarily fair. The students can't afford those technologies. Another thing in my classroom that I think about, if it's beneficial in my classroom, are they really learning from it? Are they getting use out of it? I will have students come in at lunch and they could pull out their phone or whatnot, but they know that during the class day they are not allowed to have it out, and if I see it out and they're not paying attention to what I'm doing, there's consequences for that. So there's just a lot of things to think about in each individual school regarding cell phones.